So thank you for clicking on my video. I'm super excited to finally share my birth story of my second son. I just had my third son 6 weeks ago, so I thought I better record this before I forget his birth story. This video isn't just about having a natural birth and ways you can accomplish that. It's also about having a natural birth with a preemie, which I think is a little more difficult to do, especially if you're going to do it in a hospital setting. You might not be as supported as if you weren't having a premature birth, and how to really empower yourself and advocate for yourself so you could have the birth experience you want. And of course, like every other video, I'm going to say I am pro epidural. I had an epidural with my daughter, and it was excellent. But I just wanted to try natural, and I did it, and I thought it was awesome. So if you're interested in that, I hope you enjoy this video. This video is going to give you tangible techniques you can actually use to accomplish a natural birth, things that I did to prepare, things that I made my partner do to prepare, my poor husband. And you're going to hear all the nitty-gritty details. I mean, at one point, I'm screaming on the bed, "I'm pooing!" So if that kind of stuff grosses you out, not the video for you. But I just want to keep it as informative and real as possible. So why don't we go ahead and start at the beginning. I was 32 weeks pregnant, and in the middle of the night, I woke up and I looked out and I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just peed the bed," like full-blown peed the bed, wet everywhere. Like, how am I gonna tell my husband I just peed the bed? So I was like, well, let's get up, go to the bathroom, clean myself up, which I did. But then when I got up from the toilet and kept walking, liquid was still coming out of me. And I thought, well, that's odd. So I called my doctor and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not sure if this is pee. And he said, go to the hospital right now. We want to make sure your water didn't break. So I woke my husband up. It was about 2 a.m. Said, we have to go to the hospital. So we called my mom over because my daughter was about 1.5 at the time. So she stayed. We got to the hospital, up to labor and delivery. And to check if your water breaks, they do a few tests. So they ran those. And it was determined after, I think, 2 out of the 3 tests indicated that my water had broken. So you're only 7 months pregnant, so you're really unprepared for that. I don't remember being upset. I think I couldn't wrap my head around what that even meant. So I was just like, okay. So they checked me in, and then I had a lot of doctors coming in and out of my room, and they explained to me that I was going to stay in the hospital until I gave birth, and that would be a few weeks from now. They had put me on magnesium through an IV to stop my labor, which is, if you've ever been on it, it's horrible. It makes you feel like you're hungover. You get a horrible headache. But obviously, the number one priority was to stop the labor. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna hunker down here for the next few weeks, which that part made me sad because I had a daughter at home, which now we'd have to figure out all the logistics of that. Later, I found out that once your water breaks, I think it's something like 98% of the time you're going to end up within like 48 hours giving birth. But the doctors, I don't know if they were trying to keep me in high spirits or not, hoping for the best, but they never told me that. So I had no idea I was actually going to give birth in the next few hours. So anyway, I think maybe a day had passed since I was in the hospital on the IV, stopping my labor, and I took a nap and I woke up and I told the nurse, I don't feel good. Something's just not right. And she took my temperature, and my temperature was like 99.9. So immediately they drew my blood and sent it to the lab. And then maybe half hour later, the doctor came in and she said, your white blood cell count is high, which means that's a sign of infection. So we're going to have to let you go into labor now because you can't, if you get an infection, then the baby gets an infection. That's bad news. So she said, I'm going to go ahead and start you on Pitocin and take you off the magnesium and we'll get this labor going. So here is the part where I'm so happy I empowered myself before this to have a natural birth. I knew that the second I got Pitocin, natural birth was not out the window, but was going to be a lot harder. I'm not a scientist. I have read what Pitocin does to your brain and why it makes the pain unmanageable. And I'm not going to go into detail about that here because I'll probably say it wrong. But if you want to have a natural birth, read up on Pitocin about what it does, just so you're more knowledgeable. I was able to say, no, I do not want Pitocin. Why are you trying to put me on it? And the doctor did not have a reason, except for you spiked a fever. So we kind of went back and forth and we ended up making a deal where she said, I will take your temperature every hour. And if it stays at 99.9, we won't put you on Pitocin. If it spikes, we will, because we want to get the baby out as quickly as possible. And I said, okay, deal. So I called my husband who was at home and I said, get to the hospital. It's go time, basically. So, right when they took me off the magnesium, my labor kicked in and I started going into contractions. And, I was really bummed out because my birth plan, which I strongly recommend having a birth plan. I hate when people say, my birth plan is to have a healthy baby. Of course, that's the plan and that's the ultimate goal everyone wants. That's like saying, I want to take my family to Disney World and my plan is to have a good time. Yes, well, that's the goal. But is there anything you want along the way? Do you want to stay in certain hotel rooms, eat at certain restaurants, meet certain princesses, go on certain rides? There's other things besides the ultimate goal that you can add in. So in my birth plan that me and my husband had discussed prior, I wanted to labor at home as long as possible. I wanted to use my bathtub and use my birthing ball and take walks around the neighborhood and do all these things. And I just felt so defeated. I am going to give birth from 1 centimeter all the way to 10 in the hospital, and I'm going to be hooked up to all these monitors. I'm not going to be able to use my bathtub. And I was really bummed out. And then I stopped and I said, I just spent the last 7 months preparing for a natural birth. I am not going to let this defeat that goal. That, it's not as I had it planned in my head, but I can still use the techniques I learned to make this happen. So that's kind of what I'm going to go into now. I highly recommend reading Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Childbirth. Great book, and it's all about empowered positive birth stories and getting rid of fear. But for me, this book, having a natural hospital birth, was like my Bible. I just found this book. It was excellent. Things are highlighted. I have bookmarks in them. I made my partner do techniques out of here. It covers everything. So highly recommend. So a few of the techniques I learned was one, you need to not try to get rid of the pain, but embrace the pain and accept the pain and just flow with the pain. And if I could give anyone advice on a natural birth, that would be it. The second you try to escape the pain, it gets more painful. So if you could wrap your mind around just sitting in the pain, saying this contraction, it's going to hurt, but it's temporary. There's an end point. So you just gotta accept it and you breathe through it, visualize through it, whatever you need to do. So that goes on to another technique I learned, which was visualization. For me, I visualized each contraction like a wave, or actually more like a mountain. So I really like counting. It's soothing to me. I love high intensity interval training. And I watch a lot of workout videos, and they always say you could do anything for a minute. So whenever I'm doing like a high intensity move that I think I'm gonna die during, I count to 60, because as soon as you get to 60, it's over and you get a break. That's exactly how contractions are. Unless yours aren't, that's textbook contractions. So my husband knew. He would watch the monitor, and every time he saw like a contraction starting, which I also would know when they're starting, you could feel them, he would start counting. And I would just, I'd close my eyes and I'd see myself going up the mountain, and right around 30, 40 seconds, you're at the peak of the pain, and that. So now okay, like only 20 seconds and we're going to come back down the mountain, and then I get a break. I think knowing that you're getting a break and they're coming in waves and it's not constant pain is super important. I've heard stories, and I think I experienced it with my daughter, where the contraction never fully comes down and it's just one after another. I have no advice if that's the situation you're in, but my situation with this birth was pretty much a minute on in like 2 minutes off, a minute on, 2 minutes off for 9 hours straight. So I was lucky in that respect. So think other visualizations, like I said, the mountain, the wave, the flower opening, whatever you need to do, but mine, definitely the mountain. Then talking about my husband counting, my husband was a huge part of my experience, a huge support person. I recommend, if your husband isn't on board, or whoever your partner is, find someone who is, maybe a doula, or a best friend, or your mom. Some techniques we practiced out of this book, which I'm actually going to read. So a few months, before my due date, I would say, okay, if I'm having, a contraction, or I've been having contractions for a few hours, and I say, I'm so tired, what would you say? And my husband, he I don't know. And it gives you a script right here. My partner would say, you're tired and you can do it. You are doing it. Or if I say, I think I'm going to die, he could say, it's really painful and you're getting close to the end. Your baby is going to be here. Just breathe. Another one that I remember is, I can't do this anymore. And his cue would be, let's try to do it for 1 more hour. These were important. I know maybe it sounds silly, but I don't know. I think a lot of men just might not know what to say to help you in that moment, and you're in so much pain and they do get nervous, and the last thing you want them to say is, well, you could get the epidural. Like my husband knew, don't say that to me. If I want the epidural, I will ask for it. So he needed to be prepared of what he should say. But speaking to the let's give it 1 more hour, I've also heard that it's a good thing to say to the medical staff who are coming in and maybe trying to push interventions on you, to keep saying, can we give it 1 more hour? Can we give it 1 more hour? A lot can happen in an hour. A lot can change in an hour. Lucky for me, my hospital was very pro natural birth. As soon as I told the nurse I didn't want an epidural, she literally, I think, checked in on me twice the whole time. She just left me alone, which was excellent. Another technique is using props to help you. I think I could have asked for a tub or gotten in the shower, but because of the preemie situation, I don't think they wanted to take me off the monitors. And honestly, I think I was a little too nervous to ask for a tub to be brought in the room. But I did ask for a birthing ball. The birthing ball is also something I used prior to just bounce on while watching TV. So it was something I was comfortable with. And I don't know why. I would sit on it and Josh, my husband, would be in front of me. And, you know, when we're not having a contraction, we'd be facing each other and we'd be talking. But the second a contraction came, I would just like grip almost like the top of his jeans and just like put my forehead into his stomach, and he would start counting and I would be bouncing. And I don't know, that was the perfect position for me. It really helped with my pain. And it also helps with gravity, pulling the baby down. Another thing, just thinking of the birthing ball, which mine was just an exercise ball, a yoga ball. It reminds me of exercise. During my whole pregnancy, I walked a ton. And I also did exercises that opened up my hips. So like wide leg squats and things like that. I really do think that made a difference, along with drinking red raspberry leaf tea. That's supposed to really prime your uterus for labor, for you to have a shorter labor. Some people say drink it to induce labor. It does not induce labor. It just gets your uterus ready. Again, if you want to know more about that, you do your own research on it. But I do think all these things helped me. So anyway, we sat on that birthing ball with my husband counting those contractions, I think probably for about 7 hours. Maybe less than that. My whole birth from beginning to end was 9 hours. So another thing that helped, I remember my hairstylist told me, if you can get to 7 centimeters, you can do it. You could have a natural birth. Not all women, but a lot of women, once they get to 7 to 10 goes way faster than 1 to 7. That takes a while. So it's like, if you could get to 7, you are there, you could do it. So I remember I was thinking about that this whole time, and a nurse came in and she said, okay, let's go ahead and check you, get off your ball, lay on the bed. And she checked me and she said, okay, you are at a 7, so maybe a few more hours. But I knew, I was like, no, it's not going to be a few more hours. I am almost there, and now I really can do it. But I didn't say anything. I just said, okay. And she said, well, you're still laughing. That's a good sign. But honestly, between contractions, you're not in pain. So when I wasn't having a contraction, I was able to laugh. And up until that point, that me and my husband were having an enjoyable time. But then she said, okay, you know what? No more ball. Now you're going to lay in bed. And they brought, it's called like the peanut ball. It looks like a peanut pillow, I guess. They had me lay on my side and they put it in between my thighs, and that's supposed to just like open you up a little more. And they just wanted me to lay in bed, and they turned on the lights and they pulled up a chair next to the bed so my husband can sit. And this is when I started transition. So again, like, you know, hopefully you educate yourself on the phases of birth or labor, what active labor is, and then transition, because transition is like a whole nother beast. Definitely the most painful part of the experience. Definitely the most painful. That's when kind of like there is no more joking or laughing. Your brain kind of goes into a different state, trying to cope and deal with the pain and work through the pain. So I remember laying there. My husband would still count through the contractions, but I had to use a lot of mental capacity to get through the contractions. And I know that sounds maybe strange, but, you know, I had to keep reminding myself things like breathe, the pain won't last forever. Don't try, I would like kind of try to move, like maybe if I do this position, the pain will lessen. And I had to remind myself, you're not trying to lessen the pain. You're not trying to escape the pain. There's no such thing as that. You need to just literally like accept the pain. Just be like, this is really, really painful. And just try not to panic. The second your brain goes to panic mode or fear mode, I guarantee you're gonna beg for the drugs or the epidural, it's going to get away from you. Actually, in my most recent birth, that happened, which that's a different story, and I'll post a link to that video down below. But you can't have fear take over. So anyway, I laid there as about 45 minutes, and a few of the contractions toward the end, I would say, oh my God, this one's lasting so long. And then the last one, I just said, as soon as we got to that peak, I said, ah, and I kicked the ball out from under me, and I couldn't stop screaming. And my nurse heard me and ran in and whisked on the light, and my legs were kind of open, and she looked and she said, baby is here. And she ran out, and within a minute, the room just filled up with people. Unlike my daughter, which was 3 nurses and a doctor, because I needed I'm not going to call it the NICU team, it's called the special care unit team, because my hospital actually didn't have a NICU, it was called the special care unit. So I don't want to misrepresent that. They all had to be there. So there was just a ton of people in the room, and it was kind of the madhouse. Like, they dropped the bed, they put my legs up in the stirrups, and here's another, I think, interesting point about natural versus epidural birth. With my daughter, they had to coach me through breathing. They would look at the monitor, see when a contraction was coming, and say, okay, chin down, hold your breath, 10, 9, 8, and count you through. Natural birth, you do not need that. Your body's doing it. You know what to do. You want to push so bad. You want to get that baby out of you. There is no coaching from the nurses except, like, good job, you're doing it. So I wanted to push, which a lot of women say pushing was their favorite part. And for me, I agree with that, because as opposed to just sitting there in pain and you can't do anything except accept this pain, now it's like, I can do something to stop this pain. I could push this baby out, and the second the baby's out, the pain stops. I remember I started pushing, and the doctor put her hand like on the baby's head that was pretty much crowning, and said, stop pushing, because the doctor, the neonatal specialist, wasn't there yet, because I didn't give them any warning. They still thought it'd be a few hours before I was pushing. And the normal doctor, the OB, didn't want this preemie baby coming out without the neonatal specialist there. Why? What if something happened? Well, not what if, he was, 7.5 weeks early. And I remember pushing her hand away. I was so mad. You can't stop a baby from coming out of you when it's coming out. So I remember I pushed her hand away, which is something like I normally would not do, because it was pretty ballsy to do, especially to a doctor. And I remember pushing, and I felt all this liquid come out, and I went, oh my God, is that the rest of my water bag? And one of the nurses by my legs goes, yeah, and some urine. So obviously I was peeing all over myself. Again, because with natural, you don't have a catheter, so everything just comes out, but they try to be so nice. And then I remember another push, and there was no doubt in my mind, I was pooing. Like, I was just pooing, and you're so out of your mind, just in pain, and I just was screaming, I'm pooing, and my poor husband, who's standing right here, who I don't even know, you don't care. Another thing, everyone's like, I don't want to poo on the birth table. You won't care, and if you do, no one is going to say anything. Like, the nurses literally just scoop it away, and it's not a thing, so just don't put that out of your mind. And then I think on my third push, it was the ring of fire, and holy hell, that hurt when their head is actually coming out. In my last birth, actually, I was so traumatized by that pain that I told the doctor I don't want to push his head out because it's going to hurt so bad. So it like that pain like stuck with me 2 years later. But as soon as his head was out, that was an instant relief. And I wanted to just go ahead and push the rest of the body out, but the doctor stopped me and said, for the love of God, stop pushing. Apparently the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, and again, I screamed, no, I can't. And my husband like grabbed me and was like, Andrea, stop pushing. And like the look on his face and how serious he was, I just kind of locked eyes with him, and I knew something was wrong. And I was able to stop pushing, and the doctor was able to cut the cord. And then I remember giving it a final push, and the whole body flew out. And it is instant relief. I can't even explain to you. You go from the worst pain imaginable. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It is, in some women, it's not. But for me, it was undescribable pain, to instantly the pain is gone. And not only is the pain gone, but your brain just flooded your body with like the hormones, oxytocin and all those. Again, not a scientist. So you are on like this high, you're instantly out of pain, and you get to like meet your baby. Except in this scenario, which I think this is what makes my story a little bit different. With having a preemie, as soon as he came out, they took him away to the side, and they had to start working on him and check his breathing and all of that. You know, they were still working on me. The placenta just falls out of you. Well, normally, but my placenta actually broke into a bunch of pieces. I have no idea if that's because he was a preemie or not. I never looked into it. But the doctor literally had to like go in manually and scoop all of it out. But again, after what you just went through and your body's kind of flooded with all these hormones, it wasn't really that bad. And I was distracted. I was looking over like at my baby, trying to figure out what was going on. And then once they got me all kind of fixed up and they knew the baby was stable, they brought Oliver over, and the nurse grabbed my phone, and a nurse held him with his little oxygen mask on, and they said, smile. And then they took him away, and that was the most surreal experience of my life, and my husband would agree. So after all that commotion and about 20 people in the room, all of a sudden everybody leaves. And, you know, I got up, go to the bathroom, the nurse helps me, which another thing, natural birth, like you're able to immediately stand up, walk around, go pee, something I absolutely loved. It just, to me, shortens recovery time a lot. So once I did all that and got back into bed, you know, everyone left and they turned down the lights, and the nurse said, can I get you something to eat? And we said, okay, we'll take some sandwiches. It was like 6 a.m. And me and my husband were sitting there eating ham sandwiches alone in this like dimly lit room, going through the most amazing experience of my life, probably of Josh's life. And we have no baby, and we're just alone. And I will never forget everything about that moment, those moments. I don't know. It was just bananas. So eventually, you know, they moved me to my room, and then I was able to go to the special care unit and actually see my son, you know, he was in his little incubator bed with all the wires and the tubes and all of that. But he's fine now. He's like this crazy 2-year-old. So I'm not sad about it. It was just, you know, when you think you're my first baby went full term, and then to have this preemie unexpectedly, it was just, the whole thing was crazy. But I was so happy I was able to do it naturally. I was really proud of myself. I think I had a lot of things going against me, and I stuck up for myself and advocated for myself and used all my techniques, and my partner was amazing. And it's just an experience I will never ever forget. And if you want to try a natural birth, I hope you do. I will also talk about in another video, which I'll post below in a link, about my third son's birth, which I just had him. I don't know if you see my shirt. 6 weeks ago. He was also a natural birth, but he came in 4 hours from beginning to end. That was a whole different deal, and a lot of just crazy things happened. I do want to plug my company here. I own the Sweaty Bump. I really like to work out, and I made a line of maternity and postpartum workout tank tops. I'm wearing one right here. If that's something you're interested in, I have an Etsy shop, and the link to my Etsy shop is below. And please check me out on Instagram. The Sweaty Bump also posts a ton of funny, I hope you think they're funny, I think they're funny, videos about parenting and being a mom. Okay, well, thank you, and good luck on your